of course, it's one thing to know about tones up here, and it's a whole different thing to be able to pronounce them reliably without having to think about it. What's up, guys? I'm John from Outlier, and I'm going to show you how to fix your tones using a simple but insanely effective technique called chorusing. I'll teach you the basics in this video, but if you want to take it further, I'm doing a 30-day Tune Up Your Tones challenge starting May 1st. I'll be your coach through the whole process, telling you exactly what to do every step along the way. Every day, I'll give you a few simple tasks to complete. It'll take about 30 minutes per day, and each week, I'll be doing group coaching calls to help you iron out any problems. And by the end of the challenge, if you do all of these tasks, you'll see a huge improvement in your tones. I'll be closing registration on April 30th, and we start May 1st, so don't miss it. There's a link in the description. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the 4 tones. Of course, this will just be a quick review because I'm sure you've all heard this before. The first tone is pronounced high and level, ma. The second tone starts in the mid-range and rises, ma. The third tone dips down low and then rises a bit, ma. Of course, in normal speech, it's usually just a low tone, like ma. And the fourth tone starts high and falls all the way down, ma. But I'm sure you knew that already, right? And I've found that most people can say their ma, 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 ma in isolation without any problem. The tricky part is saying them in combination and having them sound effortless and natural. Of course, everyone probably also knows the major tone change rules, but we're going to review those real quick too. One of them is when you have 2 third tone syllables in a row, the first one becomes a second tone. Like instead of ni hao, you say ni hao, right? Another big rule is that e, meaning one, can change tones depending on which tone follows it, which is why this word is pronounced iqi instead of iqi, right? It changes to fourth tone. The last major tone change rule is that bu, meaning no or not, will change to second tone before a fourth tone word. So instead of saying bu yao, you'd say bu yao. Now those are the big 3, but there are a lot of minor tone change rules too, and most of these never get talked about. For example, if you have 2 second tones in a row, the first one will be a little bit higher than the second one. Listen to this.
其实
Listen to that again and notice the slight difference in pitch between the 2 syllables.
其实
Another one is that when you say a 2-4 combination, you need to make sure that the beginning of the fourth tone is higher than the end of the second tone. If you've been taught the old 1 through 5 system where 5 is the highest pitch, you probably learned that the second tone goes up until it hits 5, and that the fourth tone starts at 5 and then falls. But in reality, the beginning of the fourth tone is definitely higher than the end of the second tone. Listen.
排列
Take a listen again and pay close attention to the end of the first syllable and the beginning of the second syllable.
排列
So like I said, these types of tonal relationships aren't really talked about in classes, and most native speakers don't even know they're doing this unless you point it out to them. It's all just ingrained. They do it naturally, the same way that you pronounce your own native language naturally, without even having to think about it. These little tonal relationship rules exist for every tone combination. And you're never going to sound natural when speaking Chinese if you don't master those tone combos to the point of being able to get them right without even having to think about it in the middle of a conversation. But of course, it's one thing to know about tones up here, and it's a whole different thing to be able to pronounce them reliably without having to think about it. Well, that's where chorusing comes in, and that's the hack I want to talk about today. So what is chorusing? Well, chorusing is where you put on some native speaker audio and you imitate it. Now you might think, oh, I've heard of that. It's called shadowing. Well, actually, they're very different techniques. And chorusing is way better at improving your tones than shadowing is. It's like trying to cut a piece of wood with a butter knife versus using a bandsaw. They'll both get you there, but one of them is way more efficient and effective. The big difference is that with shadowing, you're trailing behind the audio somewhat. You hear it, and then you repeat what you hear after the speaker. You can do this with long sentences, paragraphs, or even whole dialogues or speeches. On the other hand, with chorusing, you're just saying a few words or a short phrase. You're saying it exactly in unison with the audio, exactly in unison with the audio, exactly in unison with the audio, and you do it over and over and over, dozens or maybe even hundreds of times in a session. In this case, you want to choose various tone combos to practice with. So doing it this way, you start to hear exactly where your tones and the native speaker's tones are different. And you can adjust your own pronunciation every single rep until you're saying it exactly like the native speakers. And here's the key, the most important part of this method. Once you get it exactly right, you don't just stop and call it a day. No, you keep going. You've just said it wrong a bunch of times, and you've only said it perfectly right once. So now that you can say it perfectly, you want to practice saying it perfectly over and over. This is what will develop the muscle memory you want. This is what will allow you to say the tones correctly without having to think about it, because it's buried in the muscle memory of your tongue and your mouth. See, most people think of language learning as an intellectual exercise, and they completely ignore the physical part. But just like you can't have a perfect golf swing without practicing your golf swing over and over and over, you also won't be able to pronounce the tones effortlessly while you're having a conversation unless you've practiced the tones over and over and over. You want to practice so much that the correct tones come out without even having to think about it. You don't want to practice until you get it right. You want to keep practicing until you can't get it wrong.
I told you, those days of golf are over.
A really cool thing that happens when you chorus is something called semantic satiation. And this is that mental hack I was talking about. If you've ever said a word over and over and over until it starts to lose all meaning, frog, 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 frog. You've experienced semantic satiation. I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point in our lives, right? But once you separate the word from its meaning, all that remains is the sound of the word. Hitting this point of semantic satiation allows you to focus on nothing but the sound, and you'll be able to hear the sound in much more detail because you're not being distracted by meaning. This allows you to focus on both the sound of the native speaker's voice and your own voice, and it brings the differences between them into laser-sharp focus. Then, with each rep, you gradually correct your pronunciation until it sounds like the native speaker. This is like a mental hack that you can use to improve your pronunciation much faster than you normally be able to do. So how many reps do you need to do? Well, I'd say 1,000 is a good number to aim for. Now, don't worry. You don't have to do 1,000 in one session. Of course, that would be overkill. It's actually better for you if you don't do them all at once. Sleeping in between sessions helps to solidify that in your mind. Break it up into chunks. Do 100 reps today, 100 more reps in a day or two, and so on, until eventually you've said it correctly 1,000 times. And after you hit that 1,000, keep going if you need to. More reps will definitely not hurt. And as you're doing this, you should start to see your tones improve in conversation too, as long as you continue doing your reps, noticing when you make a mistake, and practice in order to correct the mistake. Okay, so now I've given you the tools to fix your tones yourself. Now you could take this info, design a whole tone training program for yourself, and get started. But when I've taught this technique in the past, I've noticed that hardly anyone ever puts in the work to actually fix their tones. Maybe if you're a hardcore do-it-yourself type, you'll do it. But if you're like most people, you're busy and you've got more important things to spend your time on than designing a tone improvement program. My students love the technique, but they're always asking me to give them an actual step-by-step program. So I've done exactly that. With our Tune Up Your Tones challenge starting May 1st, I'll give you a simple set of tasks to complete every day for 30 days. You also get weekly group coaching calls with me where I can answer your questions and give you personalized feedback on your tones. It's like the difference between trying to learn yoga using YouTube videos versus taking in-person classes with a professional teacher who can guide you along the way and give you individual feedback. And don't worry, I know life gets in the way and people are busy, and not everyone will be able to finish the whole 30 days. That's why you get lifetime access to all the materials in the challenge, along with recordings of all of the coaching calls. You can come back to review everything anytime you want after the challenge ends. However, sign up is only open from now until April 30th. After that, we're going to close registration, and we won't offer this again until May of next year at the very earliest. So make sure to sign up now. There's a link in the description. And even if you don't sign up, if you found this video helpful, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be posting a lot more videos on how to learn Chinese more effectively. So hit the notification bell after you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Also, let me know down in the comments if this technique helps you, and share with us any techniques you've used to successfully improve your tones. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm John from Outlier Linguistics, wishing you success in your tone training.